country that doesn't speak your language can be quite intimidating. You start to think of everything that can go wrong and even talk yourself out of visiting the place entirely, but I promise you, there are ways to make it less scary. I mean, I have lived in China and in Vietnam and the Czech Republic without knowing any of the local languages, trying to get to work, go grocery shopping, take a taxi, and just all the normal things you would do on a daily basis when you're living your normal life. It can be very challenging. And of course, just any trip you do to a country where you can't speak the local language can feel intimidating. Getting lost, trying to ask for directions, trying to buy something in a shop or a market, or even booking an excursion or a day trip. But don't let it deter you from traveling to these places because they are incredible, and I think not knowing the local language adds to the experience. So try out these tips for traveling without knowing the local language. Let's start with the most obvious tip. Try learning the basics. There are a lot of apps or websites that will help you at least learn the basics of whatever language you're trying to learn. You might not be able to have a full conversation with someone, obviously, but they are still helpful and beneficial if you just know some of the basics. When I say basics, I mean hello, goodbye, thank you, you're welcome, yes, no, please, and the numbers 1 through 10, or even sorry, I don't speak, and then insert the language here. You'd be surprised at how excited most local people get when they see that you're just trying to speak to them in their local language. They start to smile and they really want to help you. And it's just a beautiful experience. I know it isn't like this everywhere in the world, but I'd say most of the places I've been around the world, just making the effort goes a long way with the locals. Like saying "Kapkun ka" when you're in Thailand instead of saying thank you, or "Chak man nam moi" instead of saying Happy New Year when you're in Vietnam. It really puts a smile on the local faces and enhances your travel experience too, because you feel more connected to the country and their culture. Next is using a translator app. Of course, this is probably the best way to help you out with day-to-day things when traveling and not understanding the language. I personally use Google Translate because of 2 awesome functions: picture and voice translation. So the picture part obviously means you can upload a photo or take one on the spot and it'll translate it for you instantly, which is super helpful for reading menus and signs, or even grocery shopping if you live there and trying to find the right food items. So let me quickly show you how to do this step by step so you can utilize it when you travel. You'll open up the Google Translate app on your phone, then select the languages you want to be translated and what you want it to be translated to. And if you don't know the language, there's this awesome feature where you can click detect language and it will figure it out for you and then translate it to English or whatever language you're trying to translate it to. So honestly, I usually just leave it on that. Then I click the camera in the bottom right corner. Then you can either take a photo of what you're looking at or you can upload one. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'll get it from this album I put it in, and then click on it, and within a few seconds it has detected that it's looking at Chinese and has translated that Chinese directly on the image, so now I can read it in English and see that the sign says non-motorized vehicles are prohibited from entering this tunnel, which is great information if I was riding a bike or even walking and I wanted to go over in that direction. Now I know I can't or I shouldn't. It also means that someone can speak into your phone and it'll translate it instantly as well. So if you're trying to find directions on the street or buy tickets for something at a booth or an entrance to an attraction, so for this you just go back to the main screen, and this time you will have to select a language. It won't work on a detect a language feature, and then you just click the microphone button and hold it up to what's being said. Hola, ¿cómo estás? And right away it will translate that into English for you. I've even used this feature when I was stopped on a bus or metro or something and couldn't understand what the announcer was saying, and it was pretty handy. So overall, the Google Translate app is a lifesaver when traveling anywhere you don't speak the local language, and especially for me living in Chongqing, China for a year, because English was not spoken, like at all. No menus were offered in English, nothing. It was the ultimate culture shock. So I use Google Translate religiously that entire year that I lived there to help me just get by, along with my phrases, "听不懂," which means I don't understand, 我不知道,我是美国人, which means I don't know, I'm American. Next, we have using hand gestures. A lot of hand gestures are universal, so using hand gestures to mime your way through a conversation can help, but please do your research, because some hand gestures that are perfectly normal in your home country can or might be considered offensive in other countries. Like giving a thumbs up in the US is a good thing, right? But if you give a thumbs up in some of the Arab nations, it's similar to giving the middle finger. Same thing with the OK symbol. It can be taken as a vulgar slang in some countries. So do your research just to be sure. Also, some languages have specific hand symbols for different things that might be very useful when traveling. Like in China, there's a hand symbol for the numbers 1 through 10. So it's really helpful to know when I was bargaining with shop owners at market. 1 through 5 are your standard numbers, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have number 6, which is liu, number 7, which is qi, 8, which is ba, 9, which is zhi, and sh, which is 10. Which I've seen it like this or like this, but I think the whole point is to make it easier with one hand, so I would just do it like this. And make sure that you are aware of what hand gestures are considered offensive in that country, or which hand gestures can be helpful to get by without knowing the local language. And lastly, we have smiling, because smiling is universal. Even though it might be frustrating to try to decipher a conversation with someone in a foreign language, smiling shows the other person that you are patient and kind when you're going through this conversation with them, especially when they are trying to use whatever English they know to help you out. Some of my favorite travel memories ever have been with local people where we can't really communicate or figure out what the other one is trying to say, but we're trying really, really hard and smiling and laughing while we do it. So just stay positive, know that they're trying to help you out as much as you are trying to help them out, and neither one of you speaks a local language, so you gotta get by. And one more little bonus tip, as soon as you check into your hotel or hostel, make sure to grab a business card from the front desk. This should have the address of the hotel in the local language, so if you ever do get lost, you can just show people the card, or hop in a taxi and show them the card and get directions from there. So that way you're not trying to explain it in English and they're not understanding you, or try to explain it in a local language that you don't know. So like I said at the beginning of the video, traveling to a country that doesn't speak your language can be quite intimidating, but I hope these tips for traveling without knowing the local language will help you feel more confident for your next trip and make it a more enjoyable experience. If you're looking for even more ways to make your next trip as smooth as possible, check out these helpful airport travel tips.